Hi, everybody. I can't see you all, but I know there's a bunch of you there. So thanks for coming and for being here. Welcome. I'm Suzanne Sparge. I'm the executive director of 516 Arts, and I'm the co-curator of the Radical Reimaginings exhibition, along with Ric Kasini Kadour, publisher of Kolaj Magazine. Super excited to be partnering with his organization. I first connected with Ric at the International Collage Fest he organized, which took place a couple of years ago in New Orleans. So huge thanks to Ric and also to Christopher Byrne at Kolaj Magazine. And special thanks to Quique Congrains in Peru, who's connected us with lots of amazing Latin American artists in the show. Quique did a talk last week on Latin American collage, and soon we'll have that up on our website, the 516 Arts website, for people to watch. Thank you to the staff of 516 Arts. As always, Claude Smith and Mackenzie Lewis are here tonight, and thank you, Viola Arduini, and to all of the 40 participating artists in this show. After Ric talks about the exhibition and his thoughts on the 21st century collage movement, we'll hear from a handful of artists in the show. We have with us today Neil Ambrose Smith in Corrales, New Mexico, Lori Ivy Alexander in Washington, D.C., Jay Barones in Mexico City, Quique Congrains in Lima, Peru. We're hoping we'll get Karsten Creighton in Albuquerque on as well, Mila Gonzalez in Santiago, Chile, and Alice Santoro in East Providence, Rhode Island. So after that, we'll run a slideshow of the exhibition. And at any time during today's event, please write your questions in the chat, which you can see if you click on the word chat at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and it comes up on the right side of the screen. And then we'll answer your questions during the talk or in the chat if we can't do it during the talk. And the event is being recorded, so it'll be posted on our website soon after. And you can purchase a copy of the printed exhibition catalog for 20 bucks plus shipping on our website at 516arts.org/store. And 516 is an independent nonprofit organization made possible in part by members like you. So if you haven't joined, please consider becoming a member at 516arts.org/join. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome special guest Ric Kasini Kadour, and I'm probably saying your name wrong, Ric, an artist, graphic designer, writer, researcher, organizer extraordinaire, and a true leader in the world of contemporary collage art. Welcome, Ric. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. It's really happy to be here. We have one eye on the weather in the Gulf from New Orleans today, but so far so good. Welcome, everybody, and welcome. It's wonderful to have this portion of Kolaj Live Online hosted by such a fantastic organization. And so thank you, Suzanne and Claude and Mackenzie and all the folks who helped make this event come together today. I'm going to just speak a little bit about the experience of putting together the exhibition with Suzanne and what we found about collage. At Kolaj Institute and Magazine, we speak a lot about disseminating ideas that deepen our understanding of collage as a medium, a genre, a community, and a 21st century art movement. And that sounds really great, right? It's like the perfect mission statement. But in reality, we are constantly discovering what exactly that means and what these ideas are and how to put them out there. It has been a real joy to partner with 516 Arts to present Radical Reimaginings. These 40 artists come from all over the world and with a heavy concentration in the US and represent an incredibly diverse group of voices. I want to share with you a few ideas that we came across in kind of either that informed bringing this exhibition and book, that helped make this exhibition and book come together, or that we found along the way. First is one I think everyone is familiar with. One is that collage is great at making new things. The practice by its nature is the act of putting two things together to make a new thing. In thinking about the idea of reimagination, it occurred to me that reimagination is always part destruction. Creation is part destruction. that this act of making a collage and cutting something out means destroying something that existed before. And that idea really became clear, not only in a physical material sense, but also in an idea sense, as we started looking at artwork in this exhibition and book. It is truly madness what collage artists do. They take random things, a bird and a woman, and they make bird girl, you know? But I think it's important to think about that as something irrational and something magical and truly powerful medicine. To that end, Analia Babla, who is going to be speaking on a panel for Kolaj Live Online on September 2nd, wrote, she's a London-based art psychotherapist who works in counseling with young people and at a charity working with people living with bleeding disorders. She wrote a paper for the Collage Research Network about this connection between collage and trauma, and particularly using collage as a tool in treating trauma. And she writes, collage uses everyday debris. Collage employs materials that may otherwise be discarded. Perhaps the moral of the story is that something beautiful may emerge from a traumatic experience. And I thought that observation was really important, and also really important in terms of the time we live in. If you haven't noticed, 2020 has been a little rough, and we really need to find those ways that help us relax and retreat, but also be resilient, but also heal from the trauma that we are experiencing as we move through this incredibly turbulent time. Babla's work suggests that collage has a role in kind of speaking to that trauma. One of the things we learned in this exhibit is that collage artists are reimagination experts. Not just imagination experts, but really experts at reimagining what the world could be. Sasha Bonet wrote an article about Lorna Simpson in the Paris Review. Lorna Simpson's one of the artists in Radical Reimaginings. And Bonet wrote, collaging is a historical practice of Black imagination. It has helped us to envision unfathomable futures in the face of violence and uncertainty. It has been a creative way to love each other, even though we haven't been shown care, to express the depths of our experiences, even when no one ever asked us how we felt, to give evidence to all the things unseen. And I think that is a beautiful, beautiful read of collage, and a beautiful take on how Lorna Simpson in particular uses collage in the practice in her artwork. One of the things that this book and exhibition really drove home for me is it contributed to our thesis that when you shift the axis of art history from painting to collage, the voices of women and people of color become more visible in the canon. To build this exhibition, we invited artists who use collage in their practice to put forward a work of art that offered a visual narrative that spoke to our time. What you'll find in the book and the exhibition is artists putting the pieces back together, building new worlds, bringing history into the present moment, wrestling with their identity, asking their identity and their humanity to be respected. And they are giving us beauty, beautiful things to look at along the way. I invite everyone viewing the exhibit or reading the book to find these things in this work, to ask and to think about, how is this artist wrestling with identity, bringing history forward, and what does that teach us about the world we live in? I think how we get through 2020, how we get through this increasingly exciting year as we now face 2 hurricanes, is to really think about the difference between imagination and reimagination. To create something new, to imagine something, it is an act of hope, and it is an act of creativity. Reimagination is a little different kind of practice. It's about acknowledging what is there, and it's about acknowledging what is good, and it is about acknowledging what could be. The fact is that we are not all moving to a new planet or a new country or a new world. We are going to ease through 2020 into 2021, hopefully in the same houses, with our same neighbors, in our same countries as we are in now. And our job to make the world a better place is to reimagine what it could be so that we can work towards that. And I think that is what this book and this exhibition is about. It's about trying to kind of point us into that direction. And so I challenge each of you to find something in our world to reimagine, because I think that is the only way we are going to make our world better than it is today. And with that, thank you for being interested in this exhibit. Thank you for coming and listening to the artists that are going to be speaking tonight. And goodbye from New Orleans, and we'll hopefully see everyone soon. So thank you, everyone.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Thanks, Rick. Thank you so much for speaking. I'm having trouble finding the chat. For some reason, I'm just seeing, oh, now it's working. Okay. Anyway, I'd like to first welcome Neil Ambrose Smith to speak briefly about your work in the show and, you know, the role of collage in your artistic practice and how it relates to how you're feeling right now and what's going on. Just share with us your thoughts, please. Thanks.
Hi, greetings, and thank you. Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you, everybody, and that long list of foundations supporting the arts, and of course, all the members, everybody here tonight. I think, you know, well, for one thing, collage is like the most base art form. It's, in other words, like it's appropriation, or I like to call it stealing, and it gives agency. And, you know, it creates a multiplicity for culture, like mirroring identity to more people. I mean, it's like more accessible in that sense. And so I think a lot of us really, you know, bond to it. Like I look at things as inspiration and bringing them into my work. So sometimes I'm influenced by something and say, oh, I want to copy that or replicate that or mimic it. And other times I just take it and stick it in my work. And I think this is a good idea because, you know, Stanislavski did it and Stravinsky did it and Picasso did it and bees do it. So I'm going to do it. And maybe it gives more value to my work, you know, in one sense, but it's really a joy to be able to have that freedom for actual just base stealing, you know, base appropriation. And I think there's something about that, like being bad, you know, like I'm doing something that is probably not okay, you know, or something like that. But I love collage. It's one of my favorite go-to sources, and I use it in lots of different ways. I border my paintings with words from Sky Mall magazine, which is a wonderful magazine. If you ever get a chance, I'm not sure if it's printed anymore, but it was wonderful when it was out. You could get an electric dog polisher, a fur sink, a gasoline-powered turtleneck sweater, just all the great things that you absolutely need to get a deal on that you don't need. And I would take those words and put them around the edge of my painting and make this run-on sentence. And love it. I love it. It gives a whole nother depth to my work. Yeah.
Neil,
yeah.
How does your cultural background play a role in your collage work, the materials, or any?
Sure. I'm Flathead Salish from Montana. That's where my reservation is, and a lot of the stories that we grew up with, I think like any other culture, you tell stories around the dinner table about pain and suffering in a humorous way to unleash the sickness, you know, and to heal. And so in a Jewish family having dinner, you laugh about the pain and suffering for the day. Italian family, and it's the same with Native Americans. We laugh at our falling down and getting back up again. And so those are coyote stories in my culture. And there's a lot of humor involved. And so I put those learning things into my work as tools to talk about hot topics and maybe things that people don't want to talk about, you know, like racism and sexism and misogyny and violence and, you know, some of the ordinary things that people like to sensationalize. And I like to bring it to the table as showing the humor side of it in a funny way, kind of like Far Side, actually, which is very coyote in that sense. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Neil. If anybody has questions for Neil, just write them in the chat. And if there are no questions, I guess we'll go on to hear from Lori Ivy Alexander in Washington, D.C.
Hi there. All right. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Everybody? Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to participate in the show. I'm really excited to be here. And, you know, this is my first show with 516. So, you know, I'm happy about that. But just to give you a little bit of background on my work and my practice, you can't see me. I'm not sure what's going on. Can you all see me?
We can see you. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We can see you.
All right. So just to give you a little bit of background on my work and my practice, I am truly a mixed media artist. I do painting, collage, I do video work, I do community building work. So I kind of dabble in a lot of different areas, and depending on what the story is and, you know, sort of the need for the story that I'm trying to tell, I will turn to, you know, from medium to medium. So collage is very much a basis for all of that work. I oftentimes go to collage because it is accessible. It's something that, you know, I can quickly manipulate images and better understand the story that I'm trying to tell by physically, you know, holding in my hand either an advertisement or, you know, an image that someone else has produced, effectively telling me the story about myself, right? And so my work across the board centers around this theme of reimagining. And largely, I'm trying to think about a world in which Black and Indigenous people, I often refer to the people that I'm making work about as being what I call Indigenous Western Hemispherians. So people who are native to this hemisphere, people who are, you know, oftentimes have come from many, many places, but are at their core not really connected, you know, have somehow become disconnected from that previous place. So I'm very interested in stories that center around those people who are oftentimes written out of their own stories, people who are, you know, who sort of challenge the narrative, the American narrative, who, you know, a lot of my work I say is about people who were not meant to survive. And I want to think about what it would mean for us to not only tell stories about those people, but also to hear their stories, right? To hear them tell their own stories. What does it mean if we say, in fact, you know, for instance, one of the pieces that you just showed is the Black woman with her arm, you know, she's jumping in the air over the pool. So let's think about this image, right? Let's think about Blackness in the white imagination, where it's not, you know, it's not trying to tell her story. This is someone telling his own story. And see, where in some of these works, not only is the Black woman a subject, but she's the object of someone else's imagination, but not centered around them, centered around her, right? She becomes both agent and subject. I'm very interested in this sort of dichotomy of how we can change a power structure by thinking about when Black women are allowed to take up space, both in their own stories and in other people's stories, and in a positive way, or even in a powerful way, I guess is a better way of saying it. So that's really, you know, I mean, just to give you a kind of construct of where this particular body of work comes from, but also how collage shows up broadly in my practice. Most of my work does begin with some form of collage. And even in the works that are paint-based, I actually think of them as collages because of the way that I use paint. So that's, you know, something that the collage theme comes up in a lot of my artist talks, even when there's no paper involved.
Well, thank you so much, Lori. I love hearing about your work. This is something, we usually do these short artist talks at our openings in person when there are mobs of people all squished together. So this is a really different format, but it's actually got some similarities, and it's really great just to hear from the artists in your own voices. I wanted to say, Neil, I'm sorry we didn't have your images up while you were talking, but we'll share them again here. And does anybody have questions for Lori before we move on? Okay, there's some of Neil's work. I think Jay Barones from Mexico City is next. Jay, are you here with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Jay.
Hi. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Cool. Hola a todos y todas.
Where are you?
Currently, right now, I'm in Wyoming.
Oh, I thought you were in Mexico.
I had to leave for some visa reasons, and I usually come out here and work the summers at a ranch in Wyoming.
Uh-huh.
And it just worked out, and it's probably the smartest social distancing move I could make. So I decided to jump at the opportunity.
Great. Well, thanks for being here with us. Can you tell us about your work, your practice, and also the printmaking process you provide for other artists in Mexico?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. This is really cool that something like this can happen in a time like this. It's kind of unprecedentedly cool. My practice is, I think it's, it's pretty much standard as anyone else. We rip things out of stuff that was already made. And I think recently, my work has been the act of defiance of tearing down the things that magazines and media has told us should be the norm. And that's pretty standard in a general idea that we're all trying to tackle when we look through magazines, whether we think about it or not. I believe. And in particular, my work recently has been focused more on reimagining my own cultural self and the idea that I'm part of the Chicano diaspora. So I'm originally from Houston, Texas, and the saying, that the border across us is, so the border crossed us in that there were already culturally speaking, there were already Mexicans living in what is now America. And with that dynamic across generations in my own family, as I'm fifth generation, we have subconsciously been led to believe that we are a part of this other tribe, the Anglo society tribe. And it causes for me, it has caused a long, confusing miswiring of, values that I feel so distant from my actual Mexican cultural values for having been assimilated into American society over time. So when I do my work, what I think of when I'm doing it, I don't necessarily focus on or try to target any one thing that is symbolic of me trying to illustrate this, if not the entire act of undoing things that I've been told are supposed to be me, is the actual message. And the work that I do is in an effort to figure out somehow how to be my own voice and my own guide, how to get back to my own cultural values while simultaneously having that be a spirited voice for others in my community who are also very far along into the assimilation process that they may have forgotten how to be closer to our culture, Mexican culture. That's part of what my whole 2 years of living in Mexico so far has been about. And so that's that. And I think the work there is, it's a long road. And I really appreciate that it's a long road because it gives me a lot to work on. So quickly then, the printing press is, I hit ahead with what I was doing technique-wise in collage and was beginning to get really frustrated. So what I wanted to do was extend my skill set. So I went to Mexico to learn screen printing, not knowing exactly how it was going to go. But what I found through just doing was that there is absolutely a way to reproduce a collage image, which is in general sense, it's a photo. We've created a photo, and there is a way to screen print that. So that's what when I get back to Mexico, that's what my shop will do. I'll have the means to actually finish putting it all together, because in Mexico everything is a very long process. But what I'd want to do for the community, so that we can propagate our images further, so that they can give more conversation and cast out a farther net, if you will, is to screen print collage images, all of your work. When normally traditionally screen printing has mostly been used for illustration and like block color stuff. I've found a way, like a really small corner of screen printing, that allows us to be able to do the same. And that's about it. It's called Toil Press. Sorry.
That's great.
Can
Thank
you
you
hear me?
so much, Jay.
No problem.
Now I can hear you, yeah. But my face seems to have taken over. I can't see you, I just see my own face. But thank you so much. Let's see in the chat if anybody's asking questions. I'm not seeing any questions. So, well, thank you so much, Jay, for sharing with us and for being here and sharing your work. And stick around. We're going to move on to Kike Congrains, who I believe is in Lima, Peru.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you.
Simon?
Yeah, I can. Great. Hey, everyone. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for giving us a chance to talk with you. So, my work kind of consists in, first, I wanted to make popular collage in Peru, because I started doing collage on my 30s, and it was a practice that really gave me a new vision of things. So I tried to make it, to find out if there were many other people doing collage in Peru. And so I started these showings called Collage Wave, which were once a year. But then it happens that in the process of doing Collage Wave and stuff, I saw a lot of Latin American artists that really interested me, and I began to wonder why we don't have connections between Latin American artists. So with you guys and with the help of Kolaj Institute, I began to doing research on Latin American collage artists and trying to connect with as many people as I can to see what's going on here, right? Because you hear a lot of collage from Europe, a lot of collage from the States, but you never hear much from Latin America except one or two. So that was my thing, and that is like my goal right now. That is in the research department, because I'm a really active collage artist, and I try to push the medium to do whatever I see is fun. Is like my thing is having fun. I don't like delve too deep in my work. I just do it and sometimes it has the meaning, political meaning, because we live in South America, and of course you have to be political in one way or another because things are tough here, you know. So I tried not to do it consciously, but it's just it comes up really natural. So kind of my work is pushing what collage can be and what can I do collage, where I can do collage, in which supports I can do collage, or what kind of collage do I don't want to be like that person that does one collage over and over again. I want to experiment and do as much as I can, and it's a journey that has led me to do really small collages, like really big collages. So I'm always like on the lookout to do something different, you know. So that's kind of my motto. And right now I'm really doing like the research on Latin America. So I want to thank you, of course, Suzanne, for bringing so much Latin American artists here, because there is a boom of collage in Latin America, and I think everyone is getting the note now, and it's great because it's now that we can create a global collage community with these little spots everywhere, right? And become one really big thing. So that's kind of it.
Thank you, Kike.
Of course.
Can you, I was spacing out for a second. Did you tell folks about what you do with teaching collage in rural Peru to kids?
Okay, I also do stuff, yeah. But right now I'm not doing that much because of the whole pandemic, but yeah, I used to teach a lot of collage to rural areas in Peru to kids, because I find it like it's a really good medium for kids to express themselves, because you don't need any knowledge of art, of shadows, figure, nothing at all, just cutting and pasting, and kids can be very natural to do that. So it's really joy to see like the kids like going with this all like pasting in their bodies. They don't care, you know, they don't care what's artistically acceptable or aesthetically pleasing. They just do it, and it's really glad. I really have good time with those kinds of activities. Sadly, I can't do it anymore, but I'm willing to do that. And I had a project which also like stalled because of the pandemic, which was writing a book on how to teach collage workshops to kids, because it's really easy, you know. You don't have to be like a really great student to do that. You can really go by simple steps, and with that, like promoting that everyone can teach collage workshops in their less fortunate communities in their areas, because it's really a good way to connect with people. And you can, as you talk about the psychiatric or the mental health implication of doing collage, it's really interesting to explore this on a more professional level, more than collage workshops, right?
Definitely. That's great. You're really an inspiration. Thank you for everything that you do. It's so great to hear from you. Does anybody have questions for Kike? Oh, Kike, can you share the title of your book or how to get it?
Okay, I don't think it's gonna go until later this year, because I'm doing it with Kolaj Institute. So yeah, I think it's gonna be just Latin American collage, straight to the point, you know, to get the message clear. And this is like the first step of the book we're doing with Ric and the people at Kolaj Mag, which is like 6 countries, exploration of 6 countries in collage history. But I'm aiming for a bigger project with all Latin American countries, from Mexico to Chile, documenting each collage scene and each collage history. No, it's a big, really big project, but it's gonna take years. But I'm thinking it's gonna be really useful.
Great. I see there's another question from somebody who said, do you find your images in Argentinian magazines? My mom was raised in Iquitos in the Amazon region and used to get magazines from there a very long time ago.
Oh, amazing. Great. It's like I say, it's a really great way to connect. And in Latin America, we have a lot of like old magazine stuff that didn't use, and people tend to go and accumulate things, hoard things. So it's really easy to find old magazine stuff from the 50s, 60s, 10s. So, and that's it. Follow me if you can, if you want. I'm Instagram as Kansas City. I'm also the head of Collage Wave, which is a site that promotes collage. So if you want to get reblogged, hit me up, and we'll get a way to show everyone more of collage. No.
Great. And then somebody asked, are you going, oh, Rosie Shinners, one of the artists in the show, asked, Kike, are you also going to write about the history of collage art in Kansas City? That would be a great read.
Yeah, because my collages, because I really want to have fun and not to take too seriously what I do. All my collages have a little history, a little short story, which I write as a mythology of Kansas City, with it's like the imaginary town which all my collage are part of. So when I started to doing collage, I didn't want it to be like Kike Conway's artist, because I'm not a trained artist. So I wanted to look at something more playful, something more like a city or town, which each collage was an habitant or a legend, no? So that is also coming, because I'm releasing a book on those stories. And, you know, pandemic kind of stalled everything, but I'm bet next year we're going to get back on track.
Great. Well, I look forward to seeing more of your work.
Of course.
I think, well, thank you so much, Kike. And I think we'll move on now to Karsten Creighton in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hi, Karsten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here.
Wow. What a great event, and so many kindred spirits. It's so awesome to hear everybody speak, because, you know, I realize that these impulses, you know, I share with so many people, and there's just so many things that people have said so far that just really resonate with me, you know. It's really awesome.
Me too. That's great.
Yeah. So I use collage. I think I came to collage through printmaking, and through a love of the material of paper. And, you know, my first experiences were what we call shinkole, where we glue like one piece of paper to another. Typically it's a thin piece of paper to a thicker piece of printmaking paper. And I just fell in love with the material, and it's led to this way of working that just has permeated everything that I do. And like I think Lori was saying, you know, it's like everything starts with the collage. That's me too. It's like sometimes I'll just plaster. Nowadays I collage on. I started on panel, but these days I collage onto canvas, and I just start by plastering the canvas with material, and then I start picking things out. And like in this piece that you guys see here, sometimes my collage take this more sort of pictorial, trying to render space, where there's like a foreground, middle ground, background. And then other times I work in a really abstract way. And sometimes I create prints specifically for the collage, and other times I find materials. So like what you see here is a combination of things I made with the collage in mind, like the cacti in the foreground, and then like other cacti are just like cut right out of books, and I just find that, like, you know, collage offers this opportunity to kind of, I think of it as reactionary, and that word kind of is, a lot of times it has a negative connotation, but I think it's a good thing, because I trust my reactions to things, like seeing it. I kind of have to see it to know, and sometimes I don't really trust my sort of, if I were to try to, you know, envision something in my mind's eye and then just painstakingly try to recreate it. Like I'd rather have this give and take with the piece, and see what happens and react to what happens. And collage offers that for me in a way that's just really nice. And you know, this idea of reimagining, I think, is so, it's so fitting. And I never really thought about the difference between, like, you know, like picture, like in the essay, he was saying, you know, to imagine is different than to picture something that already exists. To imagine is to imagine something that doesn't exist. And so there's definitely that in my work. You know, the picture of Geronimo and taken, there's a famous historical picture taken right before he surrendered. You know, there was this cathartic thing about tearing up these old books that were so racist, you know, the old Time Life books and stuff, where I encountered the picture and like reimagining that tragedy with like a heroic end. You know, that became really important for me, at least just for me. You know, this moment that was so sad could be a moment to you know, for me to create my own story, to rewrite history in a way that was more triumphant and gives us hope rather than feeling beat down, you know? And so that there's like that one aspect. And then like what you're looking at right now, I think maybe all of us collage artists there's like a little bit of us that's a hoarder, you know? And so I can never throw any scrap of paper away, even the littlest scrap. And, you know, there's this other way of working where I just really love making use of all this stuff that's just like the leftovers, that's the recycle, that's like making something from nothing. That is really important to me. And I think that, you know, so many people of color, we have learned to do that, you know, throughout history and in our own lives, you know, to make something from sort of leftovers. And so that's in there too.
That's beautiful, Karsten.
Yeah.
There's some questions here for you. Let's see, where do I start? Let's see. Well, people are agreeing with you. I love hearing about you saying every little scrap of paper, I can't throw anything away. It all can be used in some kind of art. Do you use wax as adhesive, or is the last layer in your work?
No, I use the wax to unify the surface. Part of what happens when I use different materials from different sources is that, you know, the Kozo paper that I use when I print my own collage material, it has a matte quality, but sometimes the materials that I take from magazines are shiny, and I don't like the competing surface quality. So I use a really thin cold wax mixture with Damar varnish to make like a glaze that still has a matte quality that unifies the surface, and it sort of embeds all the collage in sort of behind the surface. Because another thing I want is that sort of magical quality where you can't quite tell what is what's on top of what's paint, what's collage. Because like Lori was saying, you know, I'm strictly a mixed media artist. I mean, whatever has to happen, if it has to be paint, if it has to be my own thing, if I have to make it, or if I can use something that already exists, I just use it all. But in doing all of that, I want it to then have this elegance where it's sort of also unified.
Great, thanks for answering that. I was curious about that too, because I always struggle with the glossy finish of certain images in magazines. Let's see, Michaela said, beautiful work, Karsten. I like your thoughts on making a more hopeful story. And then let's see, Josh Atlas would like to ask, has 2020 been productive or challenging or both?
Hi, Josh. Josh is a buddy of mine. It has been challenging, but very challenging. But you know what was the biggest thing that helped me out was to stop watching the news. That's been the most helpful thing. I recommend everybody just stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good advice. Well, thank you so much, Karsten. We really appreciate it. Stick around. People will open this up and hopefully people will have more questions, but I believe we have two more guests with us today. Is Mila Gonzalez here from Santiago, Chile? Mila, hello. Let's see, we need to unmute. You need to unmute.
Hi.
There you are. There you are.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. It's
Welcome.
What?
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to me to be part of this meeting. I want to thank you, Suzanne, for recognizing my work. Thank you.
Tell us about your process and your work.
Mm-hmm. I am Mila Gonzalez, collegist from South America, founder of Kolaj Chile, a social media platform on Chilean collage. My collage artwork talk about territory. I come from the Atacama Desert, the driest desert in the world. That is why I focus my work on concepts about life, growth, and gestation. Also closely related to women's rights, like legal abortion. And then while I grew up, politics from art became something very important to me, especially in Chilean actuality, and its estallido, or October strikes in Chile, and the performance of the feminist collective Las Tesis that make feminist team visible with great force. And I understood that community have an important role in society. And for that, thanks Kolaj Magazine and 516 Art for this event that collaborate with our college community in the world. Thanks to Kike. Kike, congrats for World College Latin American History.
Yeah, well, we found out about your work from Kike, so he's the great connector, but I'm so glad we can be together in this bizarre way on the screen. It's fantastic in its own way.
It's amazing to be here. The Latin American force is amazing. Thanks, Kike, again.
Well, thank you for being here. Does anybody have questions for Mila right now? I'm not seeing questions, so stay tuned and stick around. And our last artist today is Alice Santoro, who's here with us from East Providence, Rhode Island. Alice has shown a few times at 516 Arts and has all kinds of connections in Albuquerque. So thank you, Alice, for being here.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks so much for putting this show together. It was really fun to make these pieces. My background is actually in science and scientific illustration and philosophy. So I started out really wanting to collage together a bunch of different disciplines, I guess. I started out with a degree in marine biology because I really wanted to understand the workings of the world well in order to be able to make art about them. And so then in the early 90s, I came to Providence, Rhode Island to go to Rhode Island School of Design because they have this certificate program in scientific illustration. So I took that program and I love to make stipple renderings, very detailed little renderings of things that are accurate. But I felt like at that time, I was more interested in sort of the magical things that happened. Like I'm interested in the quantitative part of science, but I'm also interested in the personality of the fish that I'm drawing, or the creature that I'm getting to know as I am illustrating it, because I feel like there's an intimacy that happens when you spend a lot of time with something that you're focused on. So my work very quickly diverged off into conceptual art at that point. And years went by and I started making conceptual work. Suzanne knows well one of my projects, which is to make sound collages. and then record them onto cassette tape, and then weave the tape into fabric. And so it's literally a collage of sound. And I collect these sounds from all over the world and then weave them together. So I love the sort of serendipitous things that happen. I mean, there's the literal part of what's actually recorded, but then there's the other part, which is not quantitative. It's the other information that is revealed when two sounds come together that wouldn't ordinarily appear together, like the New York subway system, you know, kids playing on the subway, or the sound of the closing doors and the call to prayer, or something, you know, in the Middle East. I mean, I'm totally fascinated by these different kinds of strange phenomena that are revealed by juxtaposing seemingly disparate things. And I think that's what I've been getting at all along, is just the interconnectedness of things, and how, you know, if we have reverence for all of these things, we can feel connected to them. And it's really about feeling connected that causes us to care for each other and the world, and form, you know, a collage allows us to form some kind of alternate logic, because clearly the logic that we have is not really working. I mean, the logic that is telling us that capitalism and exploitation of each other and the environment, it's not acceptable. It's not a form of logic that is socially useful. So I think we're at the point now where we can sort of, you know, all of us collage artists, and anyone really who's interested in experimentation and playfulness and coming together in a spirit of trying to work things out and make a better world. I think that, you know, that's when kind of crazy, unexpected things happen. And that's one of the beauties of collage. I moved to Texas after New York City. So I moved from Providence to New York City, and then moved to far west Texas, to the high desert, for 12 years, and then moved back to Providence just 2 years ago to go to Rhode Island School of Design's brand new master's program in nature, culture, and sustainability studies. And I just finished this thesis, so this is like a shameless self-promotion thing, but it's called An Intricate Ensemble, the art science of an ecological imaginary for the Anthropocene epoch, which really I feel like plays directly into all of the things that Ric said at the beginning about the power of collage to help us to reimagine. So that's basically what this is about. And this is available at RISD Digital Commons. I can put the link in the comments if anyone's interested, but it's free to download. And it really just ties into a lot of these things. But it's really, it's just a delight to be part of this show. I loved reading the catalog and couldn't believe all the overlaps in all of our work. So many of the artists were saying the same thing, that we're just trying to make the world a better place. And so that was just really heartening.
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of questions for you, Alice. One, Isabel said, what are the sounds of Corona lockdown? Have you explored these sounds in your recent works?
The sounds of Corona lockdown. I'm in East Providence, and we have been trying to get up at dawn or before dawn and go for walks. So it's been the birds waking up and crickets, and also, you know, the sounds of the city. The ice cream man goes by every single day at 3 o'clock, and it has been really, really fascinating to experience this kind of much slower pace. And it's not something that we often allow ourselves, I think, in this culture, is to just really slow down to this extent. So for me, it's been, it's given me a chance to kind of digest a lot of things I've been thinking about for a long time.
Great. Well, Kelly Eckel asked if you could put the link to your book.
I will do that right now.
That would be great. And Elizabeth Mora said, hi Alice, thank you for your work. I would love to know more about how you transition between different mediums, sound to fabric, for example.
I feel like I just use whatever medium I need to express a certain idea. I call some of my works philosophoprops. So there's another book, this is my earlier one, called Philosophoprops, a Unified Field Guide. So that one is sort of, it's about these different objects that I make to try to describe ideas or spark conversations about ideas. For example, I have a set of dice that has the number 3 on all sides. And so when you roll it, it always comes up on 6. And it's sort of, you know, I had this discussion with my dad growing up. He was a philosophy major. Is it free will or determinism? You know, which is it? But this set of dice gives you the sensation of free will, but it always comes up on the same number. So it's sort of, you know, just a way to open up a discussion about these, you know, grandiose philosophical topics.
Yeah.
So I guess I just kind of use whatever material seems necessary for whatever the project is. I also, you know, do some film stuff, but I feel like these, I also, like Karsten said, I also I'm a paper hoarder. I love little scraps of paper. I love vintage magazines and books. And it was really fun to make the pieces for this show out of some old books that I'd been saving that had special sea creatures and landscapes from France and all these just little worlds that were easy to kind of dive into. And I really thought of it as a lens. I mean, the pieces, oh, there's one piece on the screen. So I really was thinking about this lens through which we can view other worlds. And I remember going to this exhibition in New York City in the mid 90s. And I can't remember the name of the artist, but it was an outsider art fair. And it was this beautiful work that was just marks that you would look through a glass bottle of colored water. And the artist's intent was that these would be prescriptions for certain ailments for people. So he would make these for a certain person for their illness, and years would go by and he would come back to it and always remember, oh, that was for that person. You know, they were coming from somewhere. Anyway, I was thinking of that as I was making these, that wouldn't it be amazing to be able to make something that someone could look at and it would be in some way soothing or some kind of lozenge. But I mean, I guess that's what art is in a lot of ways anyway.
Well, Alice, that's perfect, because we chose that image to be the cover of the catalog for that very reason, that it really had the feeling of a lens for reimagining.
Oh,
you know,
well,
it was
thank
the
you. I'm so glad that came through.
That we were trying to do. Yeah. Let's see, are there any other questions? Let's see. Rick talked about reimagining at the start, but could the curator of the show or any artist guest please talk about the nature of the radicality that the show embodies? It's a very strong word, implying great change. So I guess that's a question for anyone here. Shall we bring the other panelists up on the screen? Is it possible to do that so we can kind of open up the conversation among the panelists? That would be great. There were also a couple of questions that I lost for Mila as well, and I'll circle back, but let's stick to this question about radicality, the nature of the radicality that the show embodies. I think Rick should talk to this if he's with us.
Well, it's a really interesting question. I think radical is a word that we throw around a lot. And I think, you know, it's not something I actually spoke about in the essay, and it's a really wonderful question. So I'm putting thoughts together off the cuff here. But I think that anytime an artist proposes a new world, a new way of thinking, to some people that will be radical, to other people it will feel utterly normal. Karsten, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, he talked about making do with the scraps. That's something that that people of color are good at doing because they've had to. I thought that was a really interesting idea. For some people, I think that is a really radical idea. For other people, it is completely familiar. Of course, that's what, you know, we've had to do historically. And so I think the radicality with respect to the show is both a request and an invitation to the viewer to see this work as truly being radical. Meaning, what would it mean to embrace the ideas of these that these works put out into the world and actually implement them? Because I think that in this year and in the changes that we need to make to have a more equitable society, to have a more healthy future, to get through this pandemic, that a lot of those changes are going to be pretty radical for some folks. And I think we need to be comfortable with that. We have to learn to be comfortable with dramatic change and ease into it, but also lean into it. I don't know. I'm curious what the artists think. Do any of the artists feel particularly radical?
I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rick, you're spot on. In that particular painting that was showed earlier of mine, all the stuff that's underneath that you can't see, the collage, like I'm just like Karsten. I collage the entire painting, and the only thing that remains sometimes on these paintings is the border. And the majority of these paintings, this series that I did, is really Trumpism, and I've totally redacted all of the collage that I put in there, and all I have is this sinking head on the cover, on the face of the painting, and it's my ironized Cody, you know, representing, you know, whatever. But the whole border of that painting is from it was a title from the New Yorker in 2016, and it was huge text, and it took up 2 pages, I think. And it was just the title of this article about Trump, and it was a thrice married, blah, 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 blah. And it goes all the way around the entire painting, and it comes around the bottom. And I think that's evidence of how we're all feeling. We're sinking with all this stuff. And the only thing we can do is catharsis, is move it into our work and try to make sense of it and move it along. Or like Karsten says, just turn it off. Turn it off.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I just saw another question from Mila, and I know she only spoke very briefly, but if she's still here, is Mila still here? Let's see, where are we all? Yes, there you are. So there's a question for you, Mila. Elizabeth Mora said, thank you for your work. I identify as Latinx. I was interested to hear more about how you use collage to express Latin American feminisms, how it is different and unique to space, language, and time, for example.
I think that fashion magazines have always used women for commercial purpose. Like to signify that masculine look and show the world a look from feminist. That is basically.
Thank you. Yeah, I think collage has a long history of being used in a radical way by feminists. And even back into Victorian times, in such a repressive time for women, there was that whole tradition at that time of Victorian that was very subversive.
Yes.
And we have a question from another attendee. David D'Agostino asks, can you provide more insight in how collage can be a healing agent for children who are stressed or wounded? The process, the pedagogy. Can any of you speak to that at all?
I can try. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I think that there's something really, like we said earlier, cathartic about and irreverent about cutting things up and using materials that aren't sort of sanctioned fine art materials. And I think that what that can do for children is show them that, you know, there's not these gatekeepers to creativity, that it is really something you can find wherever you're at, and you don't have to buy expensive oil paints to start making work. It can be, you know, it's all around you, you know, and I think that that's a skill, if you learn, that you have for the rest of your life, and you can, you know, and, you know, I think that it's a roundabout way of healing, because, you know, I think whenever you create, you might not be thinking about your pain or specific issues, but it's, you know, for me, you know, I'm a visual artist because, you know, there's so much that swirls around in me that's below the verbal realm, that's like not accessible to words, that's about feeling. And when I do art, it just skips all of that and goes right to the feeling. And I just think that's so healthy, you know, especially for people looking for an outlet, you know, or processing. And I think it's just really mysterious how it all works, because sometimes, you know, you're not even thinking about anything. Sometimes what it gives you is a moment where you don't have to think. And that can be the most healing thing.
I'd like to piggyback on that and say that the other part of that too is that kids don't have art training, and so they can't draw these things in a fast enough way to get this information out to make it accessible. And that when they cut out images from a magazine, they can cut out exactly what they see or what they're thinking. You know, they can take that exact image of the bathing suit and the bicycle and whatever, and construct those things together, and it makes 100% sense to them. And it's so fast, it's like a Polaroid. And I think that makes that it's, and I think psychologists do that all the time. I think I had to go to a shrink, you know, when I was in elementary school. I don't know why the school had one, but anyway, I was drawing all the time and they thought there was a problem, so I had to go see the shrink. And so I had to do these puzzles and things, and that was like one of those things where you have to, you know, cut things out of a magazine. And so, of course, my collages, it just kept me in the office. You know, I could never get out of there. But it connects these young minds together in such a fast way. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Thanks, Neil. There's a question for Lori Ivy. The earlier collage artists that were famous were men. What challenges do BIPOC females face in collages that men normally don't encounter?
So I think that women of color face, the biggest challenge is just being seen, right? It's the same challenge that we face at all times. It's literally, you know, you're standing on the corner and someone walks into you and, you know, just sort of bumps up against you because you're like not there. I don't think that it's necessarily a challenge of collage per se. It is the fact that we're in a society that kind of doesn't expect us to be real. But in terms of, you know, the art world, I think that the biggest challenge that I am encountering in this moment is this sort of dichotomy of being kind of, you know, in vogue, right? Women of color and people of color are having a moment as society is kind of melting down. People are realizing, oh, you guys exist. But at the same time, you know, sort of on the flip side of it, still being, you know, still having to live through all of the things that are happening in the world, right? And being approached as an expert of sorts on the trauma that you're experiencing. So I think that my biggest challenge at this very moment is creating space for my own work and for me to be able to keep my head down in my practice and get, you know, get from A to B, get to where, you know, where my work needs to go. But in the broader sort of story of where women of color show up in the art world, the hardest thing is being seen, is being seen and acknowledged for our talent and for our skill, for, you know, the fact that we've been here for 20 years working, right, and working with our, you know, in our own studios and doing the work. Yeah, I think that's it. Let me know if that doesn't answer your question. I hope it does.
Thank you. That was a great response. I'm just looking to see. Okay. Pramila, Jay, Kike, Alice, and Lori, all of you live in coastal cities that are in danger of being flooded forever. Have you explored where inland you would live?
Okay, I can answer that. It's a funny question. Well, Lima has a particular thing that Lima is beneath Silvad. We have like a really big like a risk that covers Lima. So Lima, the city itself, is not on the edge of the city. Is like 50 meters around. So Lima won't flood that rapidly. But no, I don't think that is a talk. At least not in Peru. I don't know you other guys in Chile or Mexico. How are you seeing things?
Well, I have some other questions in the Q&A that I just discovered here. How many of the artists are self-taught, and what collage artists have inspired your work?
I'm self-taught, yeah. I began doing collage like 10 years ago, approximately. I'm a writer by profession. I worked in advertising before doing collage, so I find that a lot of people aren't taught who do collage, because I think art school maybe give you a little tube like box to think of, and if you don't study that, you can just rely on your vision to do stuff. So I think, I don't know if I'm wrong, but most collage artists I know, they aren't like formally trained artists.
And also people are asking for everybody's Instagram handles. So if you can put them into the chat, that would be great. And we'll also share those afterwards as well. I don't know if I'm missing anybody's questions here, but yeah, I would say, if any of the panelists have anything else they'd like to share, please do. People are asking if it's being recorded, and yes, it's being recorded. Do any of you have questions for each other while we're all here?
All you artists are so quiet.
I do have a question. So I noticed language in a few people's work, and I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about whether you all use text what you see the role of text in your work. My collage in particular oftentimes displays, you know, particular language, but I use text a lot in my paintings as well. And I'm just curious about how you see the relationship between a visual image and text.
For me, text is always dubious. It's hard, but it certainly enters the work sometimes. Probably more as a shape than as a like carrying the meaning. You know what I mean? I think initially I used it to try to explain things that weren't happening with the work itself. And so then I kind of didn't want to trust that anymore, you know? So these days I find that I think about it just more as a shape for me personally.
This is an interesting question. When you use text, do you like to have it easily visible or more like an Easter egg?
It sensationalizes the work a lot of times, and it's really easy because you can read it, right? Language is like base for us. It's the first thing that we can hit. It's like a photograph a lot of times. And but the words right on the face of a canvas, and a lot of times I cover up the words, and what I've done is put them on the edge of the painting. So if you want something really easy in my work, you have to look at the side of the painting. You have to actually get over to the side of the painting to get to the easy stuff. And it's not really that easy because it's a run-on sentence. But boy, it's really hard because you put a word in there, and you know, now you're competing with Barbara Kruger. I mean, some people are really good at it. You know, some people can put words in their paintings and stuff and get away with it and not have it look like a poster. You know, Basquiat was really good at it, and that's like hand scrawl. You know, like Squeak Carnwath, you know, with her Son of Sam scrawl that she puts in her paintings, and it's great. It works really well, but boy, that's a tough one. It's really hard to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm thinking it would be a good time for Rick to make some announcements about the Collage Online, how the festival has gone online this year, and share with us what's coming up for that. The next event for Radical Reimaginings is called Women in Collage, and actually Lori will be on that panel as well. And Rick can tell you more about that event, but it's September 24th. It's a Thursday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And I'm going to turn it over to Rick to share some announcements. And then we're going to have a slideshow running of the whole show. And I'm also, I don't know if you all can see it, but I'm going to share with you, this is what the cover of the book looks like. Put it over my face. And you can get it 516arts.org/store. And then, yeah, Claude's going to play some music, and we'll be sharing the artwork in the slideshow. So that'll be a form of the reception. The kind of parties we usually have with music are different format now. But thanks, everybody, so much. And Rick, please tell us more.
My pleasure. So our next event is going to be for Kolaj Live Online. Well, for those who aren't, who are coming from 516 Arts and not Collage, Kolaj Live Online is a series of virtual programs that we've been running. They started in July. They're going to run through the end of September. And it's a series that we came up with after we had to postpone Collage Fest New Orleans this year. It's been an interesting experience learning to operate virtually. We have we have 6 events coming up between now and September 30th, but I'll let you know about the next 2. The next one is Collage Cast. Essentially, what would a television show about collages look like? We're going to have a pilot screening and a discussion with the producers of that pilot. And that's going to be on Thursday, August 27th. And the next event after that is on September 2nd. And that is called, the event is titled Collage Beyond the Art Form, Collage as Therapy, Education, and Community Engagement. And if you're interested in this intersection of collage and trauma, Anila, who I mentioned in my remarks, is one of the panelists on that, in that event. And really it's about how collage is used in a therapeutic setting, as well as a community setting. And then after that, on September 5th, we will talk about the future of collage. This is a conversation with the Weird Show's Maximatic. And there are a couple other events that are remaining. Daphne Steinberg is leading a cat and paste workshop. There is the forum that Suzanne mentioned. By the way, that's all about cat collage. There's the forum that Suzanne mentioned, which is Women in Collage, which should be a really fascinating event that is already, I think we have over 100 people signed up for that event already. And that's looking at both women as the makers of collage, also women as the subject of collage. And so it should be an interesting forum. And then our last event is Navigating the Digital and Analog Worlds. This is a workshop demonstration around collage and printmaking with David Wisher and Lisa Wicks. And for anyone who's interested in this kind of collage beyond strictly cut and paste, similar to what Jay Barone has been doing in his work, kind of working at that intersection of print and collage, they're going to be doing a demonstration and presentation of their work and process. I'm going to put the link to Kolaj Live Online into the chat, and I welcome everyone to discover Kolaj Institute and Kolaj Magazine. And if I keep talking, I'm just going to move into an infomercial. So I'm going to turn it back to Suzanne or Claude. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I thought the questions tonight were really fantastic. I'm seeing the questions now. The which one about trauma, that is on September 2nd. And so I'm going to put the link in now so folks can get to seeing the program.
Well, thank you so much, Rick. It's just a great alliance between Kolaj Magazine and Institute and 516 Arts. I look forward to doing more together with you into the future. And we're going to follow this with a looped slideshow of the exhibition and some music. We'll leave it on till about 8 o'clock, and we'll keep the chat open if anybody has more questions. And thank you for being here. Great event. Let me check the Q&A if there's anybody else. I think we've answered everybody's questions. So thanks everybody. Enjoy the slideshow and the music, and we'll see you next time.